Okay, hi Arjun. Um, the Dr. A, as you're well known. Thank you so much for taking time out and kind of doing this, even after we've had a lot of technical glitches. But I guess that's part of the process. So today, I want to hear a couple of things from you, and I'm sure you've heard it many times. You deal with this day in and out, which is screen addiction and fatigue in especially the younger generation of today, because they have literally grown up, been raised, or are born with technical gadgets around them, and with us becoming a population, or a world that's becoming more and more digitalized, somewhere a lot of parents are finding it very, very difficult to kind of find a fine balance in how much and what to kind of allow them to consume. You being a medical doctor and a psychologist, a therapist par excellence, are aware of the fact that it has a significant and deep impact on a child's mental health and cognitive, functioning. So I have a couple of questions. We decided to keep it at five, but we're going for six because I had quite a few questions that already came up. I'm going to ask you these questions, and if you could just answer them, and you can share what you feel is right, and we can take it from there.
Okay, yeah, sure. Sure
All
thing.
right. I have my questions
Thank
ready.
you. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Shita. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. And it's a very nice thing that we have a lot of people that we have worked with over years. We have worked in this field with a lot of children for many, many years now. And the kind of approach which I have is, I wouldn't say it is still, usable, but it is data. It is a data of sorts which can be utilized by people who are working in the field in more appropriately, because I've been consistently working with children and helping parents and children understand the new dynamics that's going on.
Right.
So yes, start with your questions. I hope that our viewers will get a lot more understanding of how I'm trying to approach this situation. Thank you
Yes,
so much,
and
Shita.
and
Yes.
for I would like to tell everyone that Dr. Arjun um, looks at things from a holistic perspective, and goes to the root cause of a problem rather than suggesting symptomatic solutions, which is where our
Yeah.
question one comes. So question one um, is, what has so drastically changed in the last few years that we have to use new parenting approaches? um, because some things like this probably didn't exist, let's say 50 years ago. So what has so drastically changed that we need to have parental classes, we need to have new approaches? If you could shed some light on that.
Uh, so if we have to look at what has drastically changed, we must take it from the available history that we have. Say, for example, after the World War II, we had radio becoming pretty common across the whole country. So it's believed that Mahatma Gandhi, Subhash Chandra Bose used to connect to roots and corners of India, reach out to people using the radio as a tool of communication. They reached out to people, and something shifted at that point. The whole of traditional, rustic, non-technological era shifted. The child who used to only listen to parents, the most of the data of the child's learning came, the most of the data came from parents directly. It was either grandparents, it was either relatives, or it was parents. But all of a sudden, with the advent of radio or transistor, instantly we started to see that children are picking up things auditorily. So children are becoming more receptive to music in extremely different ways. And the brain, which is now being evolved, the brain is chiseled based on the new data that the organism receives. So the human child started to receive a new set of data, which till that point of time was available not for many people, like only probably certain kings or some really important people had access to knowledge which used to come from radio or TV. And the generation who heard radio,
Right.
the next generation in another 20, 30 years instantly shifted. So we could see advent of black and white TV. So there is extremely popular. For about 5 to 10 years, there was this series of black and white television coming in, and then we had color television coming in, and then we had palm tops or mobile phones,
Yeah.
where everything is in that phone. So what you see here essentially is an escalation or evolution of technology, leading to new data being exposed to a newborn or a infant's brain. So
Right.
maybe a 2-year-old is already using mobile phone today.
Yes,
So what has
absolutely.
happened?
In fact, one of my friends in Zambia, her daughter, her first word was not mom or dad, it was iPad. And it was shocking.
Good. It's in Zambia. No, it's in Zambia. So if it's happening in Zambia, then trust me, nobody. It's like, for those of you who don't know, Zambia is in like Central Africa. Probably it's not probably. It's still, it has some green rainforest left, and the child born there is saying Apple or iPhone. The technology has chiseled its way to such dark corners of the world. So this is what I'm trying to say. And every data that the sensory organs of the child pick up is altered, it's modified in a certain way which has never happened before. What the children today are going through, are being exposed to, is much different as compared to the data that we were exposed to when we were kids.
Right.
So this alters the child's brain in an extremely different way. The child is actually seeking for power. What attitude,
Power.
what behavior, power, yes.
Okay. Could you
What
elaborate a bit on
behavior
that?
of, yeah. So what behavior of the child is responsible for allowing the child to get what it needs can be translated as power. Child asks for something, the parent doesn't give it to the child. Child throws a sophisticated behavior, it throws a tantrum, and this kind of increases to a certain level. So where does the child learn this from? So it is actually picking out the data from cartoons, running, chasing, moving things, very fast moving things, watching stuff which is trying to snatch things from someone. So the child is learning these behavioral patterns unconsciously. It's not that the people who are, doing this cat and mouse chase in the cartoons is actually responsible for the child's alteration of the brain. It's for laughter, it's for fun. But this very process is altering the uh, response reaction, or it's altering the way in which the child is going to react um, for a particular stimulus.
Okay.
So this is the set of new children who are coming in. So
Right.
instantly, the dynamics of parenting shifts.
All right.
We
Thank you
cannot
so
use
much.
the old model.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, the brain has tremendously evolved, and probably, yeah, you're on point there. Okay, so I'm moving on to question two.
Okay.
How can you avoid screen addiction especially for those whose work, whether it's school work in this situation or any other work, form of work, is heavily dependent on technology and social media. Because today you also hear of a lot of these very, very young children, as young as, like 7, 8, 9, becoming YouTube sensations and doing something on graphic designing and all of that. Not saying that the creativity is wrong, but then how can you avoid that addiction per se? um, could you could you explain the
See,
scientific perspective as well as you just did, and then probably.
I wouldn't say this is the scientific perspective, but I would say this could be looked upon as one of the perspectives. See, the moment the child is given something which it starts to enjoy, it
Right.
seeks after more and more of this pleasure. One of the greatest pleasures in this world is recognition and importance. When the child is exposed to a sense of social recognition, it's very common. If you actually see when a child does something, if everybody claps, the child does more of it. So you
Yes,
say
I
very
mean,
good, very good.
yeah, a lot of families, in fact, make children stand in the middle of, a gathering or something and ask them to perform, and everyone claps. So, I mean,
Yeah, it's
are you saying that it's not healthy or
no,
it
no.
should be
I'm just saying
moderated?
it is. I'm just saying it is not different from an adult sitting in front of a Facebook Live and telling the world that I can do this dance too. So trust me, it's all just the same. So there, the parent is giving appreciation. As adult, we are trying to grab another chair and ask for appreciation. So it's not different. It's just an attitude where people want to be recognized. And when a form of social media attention is being given to a growing child, it could be TikTok, where a teenager is actually throwing up a tantrum in public or showing off his or her skills. It could be that, or it could be an adult platform where an actor is acting on a big television screen, or somebody is playing a game. So when you look at the core fundamentals, this nails down to the attention seeking behavior which is ingrained in every single individual. So uh, if you say the screen time and attention which that individual is gaining because of indulging with the screen time, now this becomes a new kind of this becomes I would say this becomes a new kind of altogether. It's called a social media addiction for the lack of word. However, it's just not social media addiction. It is much, much more than that. It's behavioral pattern which has to be noticed here. And if this is a problem, there has to be a timing allocated for use of screen. Let's say you use the screen for a couple of hours. Let's say you use the screen for 3 hours. That's it. You keep going beyond it. Uh, it's a never ending loop, because somebody or like people post things and wait for hours. Like sometimes I write something on my screen and I wait for hours. Okay, will somebody like what I'm going to write? Trust me, it's a thought process which gets ingrained. Even like for all this talk, sometimes when I get such a thought, I keep wondering, wow, I wrote something and I seek appreciation. I can actually understand how a 12 or 13-year-old who has been given a mobile phone would be feeling for whatever he or she is doing. So I think it's just a child. It's like a process of being a child, being given an opportunity on a larger platform, which is being offered by the social media. So is it right or wrong? I don't have an answer, because depending on the nature of work, so it becomes right or wrong.
But
However,
then how
there
can
has
it
to
be
be.
avoided? How can it be avoided? How can the addiction per se can be avoided? Are they, I mean, like most people know today, even most children know that maybe you don't have to kind of spend more than X amount of time on the screen, but still they are compelled subconsciously probably to do it.
That's addiction, right? That's where the addiction comes. It's like, it's the addiction, any kind of addiction, you must be aware that this attitude of ours is responsible for addiction in the first place. It's our attitude, it's our desire to be out there, it's our need to be recognized that is being fed by the social media. So I don't know if you can go out there and say it is addiction, it has to be avoided. This is not a black and white phenomenon,
Is
because
it,
every time,
do you think it's an
ev-
escape mechanism?
escaping from what?
The current reality, maybe they, I mean, maybe I'm just, I'm not
What is
wanting to
current
kind of
reality?
pay
No,
attention to the
let's
current.
not make this a psychotherapy session by making me ask you what is your current reality like. Trust me on that.
All
But
right. Oh, we'll keep that for a later
so
date.
it's, yeah, we have to be aware that these are patterns which are existing already in us, which is being milked by the situation.
Right.
Unless we learn to keep a control or a check on ourselves, so to what extent are we giving ourselves out there,
Okay.
it's going to be something which we can't take back.
Okay. So question 3, I think you partially answered it, but maybe, if it would be nice if you can repeat. How do I manage my child's tantrums when he doesn't listen to me when I tell him that, don't stop using the phone or stop playing, PUBG, for example? How do I manage his tantrums?
Uh, I, without wanting to take names of any games or platforms out there, I have seen the devastating effects of certain games on children. So some of these games have children playing in formation of groups and teams. So a virtual team or a group is formed, and the child's behavior, the science psychology is being tailored by these games, most of which are based on the platform of warfare, based on the platform of fight and wrestling, and based on the platform of forming teams to defeat one team versus another team. So some of these games out there are so beautifully built in lines of the very psyche of organism of herd. So what do I mean by organism of herd? We humans tend to be in groups of people. There are certain people who are solitary, of course, but most people remain to operate in a society which is functional. And this games, there are certain games who have used social psychology to form teams. And
I was just about to
these,
ask. I'm sure there's a group of psychological, met or
yes,
some
yes,
amount of psychology
yes.
that goes into it in building those, uh,
Everything finally boils down to advertising. Everything is marketing and advertising.
which
Everything is
again
follow the money
backs the
trial.
psych. Yeah.
Yes, it's all follow the money trial kind of a thing. So we have come to a position where everybody is taking up the roles that in their immediate environment, which game or which platform has been given that sort of halo, so that this is like a biggest, most famous game. So yeah, so answering your question, how can now how I would suggest here, I would suggest uh, uh, I will be sharing as much as information possible with you on the platform. And most parents, if parents are working closely with children, this is a moment where parents have to connect with the child.
Right.
This is a moment where parents have to get in touch with the child in such a way that the child should start trusting the parent. So
So this question is actually from a preschool teacher.
wow, yeah, see, that's now if it's a
Who
teacher,
also
then
has
we have
children of her own and is
own.
finding it
And
difficult to kind of.
yeah. So this needs, it's like, I could here, but this is much beyond that. One of the fundamental error which the modern science has taken in dealing with children is we think the child does not know anything.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
we have to shift the paradigm here. Imagine this is a all-powerful Superman who has a loss of memory being born in your house, and how should you deal with it? The whole paradigm of teaching and learning changes. This is
right.
where we are today. In most of the whenever I coach parents or teachers, I actually tell them, take the position, look at the child as somebody who knows everything, but who is deliberately forgetting things in order to give you a particular experience. What are you resisting the most? You seek it there. So,
That's
and this
beautiful. That's
equation,
beautifully put.
yeah, and even your parents, even our parents, over a span of time, start acting like a child because they are going through that phase. So being human, being adult will eventually be how to see somebody as an equal, how to see somebody as superior, and not see anyone as inferior.
Right.
So this will probably be like the way in which we have to approach education and teaching. We have a long way to go, but fortunately there are a lot of people who are doing this, who are doing it in a very beautiful way. So yeah, this is
Okay.
what I
Thank you.
wanted to say.
Thank you. I guess a lot of these questions are like huge discussions on their own. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and we'll definitely do this again and often, and probably elaborate each topic. We do need a
yeah.
lot of we need all we can from you. Okay, so question 4 quickly. How to manage today when even schoolwork is online? I asked this in a different way earlier, and the most important question that is asked here is, what is the ideal screen time usage that a child, let's say in a young child, should have?
Okay, now this question doesn't have a scientific answer because we don't have data that has been studied. Okay, for how many minutes if a child is exposed to a particular kind of screen, what is the alteration that's happening in his brain or nervous cells? We don't have that sort of data yet. However, um, this is my recommendation, purely from seeing few kids grow up to 30 minutes of phone from above 3 years to 6 years. 3 years to 6 years, a 30-minute of screen time, if it is given, the child will be appropriately sharp. The light from the screen is not too blind to, dump the child, but the child knows how to use the mobile phone, how to use
Right.
the gadget. How can I be up to date with the technology that the universe or the world is stepping into? So up to 6 years, from 3 years to 6 years, I would say about 30 minutes, and then probably 35 to 40 minutes up till 18 years. But beyond 18 years, what I can see is the world is stepping into a completely digital screen universe. What is the ideal time? I don't know. I know adults, I know people who are in their 20s who sit for 16 hours in front of the camera. So if you ask me, what's the ideal time, I don't know. Like, all I can tell them is at least keep the screen 1 meter away from you.
That was the
Get
next
yourself,
question, actually. Yeah, that was how,
yeah,
what is
keep
the distance? Because you
at least
also
1 meter.
today you also see a lot of young mothers with keeping like a cartoon on or some a musical on while feeding their children, and the child is not focusing on the food, or not doing anything else, but
That's
constantly.
beyond the scope of this topic. Let's not discuss that.
Okay.
Let's not. Let's take it from. So the distance is, I would say, it's about 1 meter, definitely, and at least 1 meter. This is what I would say. It's like it's one of the very beautiful ways in the ancient Sanskrit literature. They have a word called as grihahasta, means the house should be on your palm. So, and mobile phones are like palm tops. You keep it at an arm's length away. Don't let the mobile phone enter into your head or your head enter into the mobile phone.
Okay. All right. And is there any exercise to help balance this effect? Because as you said, we are moving into completely digital world and there's no escape really. So the only way we can probably do this is by balancing. Um, so is there any exercise per se, maybe for the eyes, maybe for the mind, to help balance the effect?
So I would take this question in three distinct parts. So I would look at it from the physical, the body, the posture. So what are the physical postures that the person who is using the screen is engaging in? Quite often, some people slouch. Some people, have weird physical postures with improper ergonomics, which causes pain in their back, which causes pain in their neck,
Yeah.
and I know people who have thumbs, the thumb which is sore thumb because of
I
you know
had it
uh,
myself last year.
please don't say it here on screen. So yeah, so we have carpal tunnel syndromes. So we
Yeah.
have lots of these ergonomic related issues because of
Yeah.
the screen time. So the one of the first thing is for the body. So there's a separate section which when people come to me for coaching, I usually take these things. I tell them, so this is first. It's always the body which you have to take care. And then the second thing which I always focus on is the nature of data that you're receiving. What is the kind of data that you're actually receiving and feeding your brain, or
So I let me just translate the nature of data. I would say the type of content in today's
the type
world.
of content.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the type of content which you're watching, and what is that content doing to you? If anything too light and hilarious, it might appear your life is becoming light and hilarious, but it's all a hallucinatory world. You have not actually employed what you have learned as skill. So yeah, so it's the nature of the content. So exercising the right kind of balance on how should we appropriately use the content in our life. So this is the second kind of approach which I would use. And the third kind of approach is I am a huge fan of yoga and pranayama, not just from the lines of physical exercise. A lot of people think yoga is just physical exercise, but there is a lot of electrical, electromagnetic impulses which your body is utilizing in this process. And I would be wrong if I don't tell them that since you're watching a digital screen, since you're allowing the content of the screen to modify your heart rate, make your heart beat, like it's weird, but people have wars on screen, people have sex on screen, so people have delicious food programs on screen, and all this, when it is put together, the brain does not know the difference between what is real and what is a screen
Magic.
related
Yeah.
experience, imaginary experience. So we are being pushed to the edge of uh, thinking that the screen is the world, whereas it is not. There are relationships. We have to make friends. We have to talk to people. We have to have communities. We have to build teams, not for wars on any particular game platform, but to interact with people, learn more. So we have to come to that space. And that's what I would say is the next most important thing which we should be focusing on.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's so many questions, but I think we would need like a proper, individually. So are you open to taking one last question?
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll find
So
take one last question.
again, kind of similar to what you answered just now, but how do you overcome screen anxiety and fatigue? Because it's recorded more and more that people who use the screen for longer duration do experience more anxiety, are more lethargic, are more drained. So how do you overcome that? Or is that, I mean, again, is this out of the scope
See,
of, the current discussion,
it,
or is that a longer
I
process?
wouldn't say it's out of scope, but I would say that since you are asking me the question, the nature of fatigue, you have to explain to me what is fatigue according to you. What is screen anxiety? But if you
Is
have
that
not
subjective? Are
experienced
you
it,
saying that's subjective to person
yes,
to person? Okay.
yes. So maybe like I know I have had a couple of interactions with people who have screen anxiety, but what's really funny about the people who have screen anxiety is they have the same kind of anxiety when they are in front of a pretty woman, or when they are in front of somebody whom they couldn't talk to. So screen
Okay.
is just another medium to be more miserable. So that's how I would, as of now. But I'm sure this word screen anxiety will have lot more meaning, because uh, we like to give meanings to everything that we associate ourselves with.
Right.
So, but yes, maybe if I get people who have screen anxiety but do not have real people anxiety, then maybe we will be able to differentiate what is the nature of this anxiety, and study it little more scientifically, take lot more data, present it, and then we will be able to conclusively say that this is fatigue, which is associated with screen. This is fatigue, which is associated with human beings. This is anxiety, which is associated with human beings, and this is with
Thank,
so
thank you so much, Arjun. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had to cut short a lot of other questions because we
Yeah, yeah, that's
obviously do
okay.
not
We'll,
want to defy the fact that, we are talking on a screen as well right now. So do you have any parting thoughts before, we close, or we are definitely doing this again, but if, a few parting words from you would make a huge difference.
well, keep your questions flowing. Ask the right kind of questions. I'm not saying that ask questions. I'm just saying please ask right kind of. This is to all the viewers out there, so that you know that the study is still not over. The science is evolving, and we are doing our best to bring in the data. And it's a request, but just don't push yourself to the edge in the realms that you're truly not sure how deep is the ocean, and how wide is the digital arena, because it's never ending. So yeah, just don't push yourself out there too much.
Thank
Uh,
you so
Take
much.
care and keep the questions coming.
The last thing I would want, I would ask you is if someone wants to connect with you, do you have an email address, or can they connect with you or follow you somewhere on, on any space, digital medium? But
Digital media, Facebook is the best place I would suggest,
can you share
for
your
if there are
Facebook?
any questions.
I mean,
It's Yeah, it's with this recording there is a Facebook link, right? So that's my Arjun Thimmaiah, Dr. A. That's my Facebook link. Yeah. So you could just drop in a message there,
and
and
could you share your website as well, please?
transform habits. TRANSFORM, transform habits, HABITS .in.com.org is all me in different phases of my evolution. So, but yes, addictions has always been something which has been really, really dear to me. And I would still suggest that if there is anything that you have to ask here, or if you have to take any of my consultation, um, first get the knowledge, get the data right, understand the person, watch these videos, understand the content, and then probably you will understand how I work, and then we could do a lot more magic.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye bye, Ishita. It was pleasure. Thank you for
Thank
having me with you.
I'm
And
I'm
I
going
hope,
I'm going to trouble you a little more. So please be
all
available.
right, all right. Stay blessed. Yeah. Bye bye.